Get started here. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today for the webinar, Learn How to Generate Record Profits at Your Next Fundraising Event. We are just going to do a couple housekeeping items here today. All attendees are on mute throughout the broadcast. The webinar slides will not be distributed, but a video version will be sent out via email. If you have any questions, we would love to hear them. Type them into the questions section of the toolbar over on the right side there, and we're going to have a Q&A session at the very end of the webinar, which is always proves to be enlightening. You can live tweet us at WinspireMe or at HooperDanny using the hashtag fundraisingprofits during the webinar, and we'll get back at you. So welcome. Thanks again. I'd like to introduce our good friend, celebrity auctioneer, author, personality, and just a root tootin' good time, Mr. Danny Hooper.
Well, Ian, thank you. It's great to be back with you here in Southern California. Good afternoon, everyone. Those of you tuning in here, be it morning or afternoon, glad to be back down here. Sorry about your hockey team.
Yeah, the Ducks.
Yeah, that's almost did it. Anyway, nice to be here. Beautiful day in Southern Cal.
Yeah, you would bring up hockey.
Yeah. Hey, you forgot in the housekeeping, Ian. A couple of other things. We'd like folks to remain seated throughout the entire webinar. No smoking during the webinar, and also no consumption of alcoholic beverages during this webinar.
Thank you.
Because we have some important ground to cover.
Safety first, always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Danny. My name is Ian. I'm the creative director here at Winspire, and we're happy to be here today to provide you guys with some really good fundraising resources. So I wanted to introduce Danny just real quick. Danny is a benefit auctioneer specialist. He's an absolute pro in the arena of event fundraising. He is the author of Easy Money, How to Generate Record Profits at Your Next Fundraising Auction Event, which happens to be the topic of today's webinar. Danny does, well over 100 charity events each year. Raises countless millions of dollars for organizations of all size and scope. So he really has a depth of knowledge that we're excited to share with you guys here today, and we hope you can find useful.
Well, I don't know how smart I am, but certainly I've had lots of experience in. I did my first fundraising auction for Ducks Unlimited back in 1987. It took until about 2 years ago to finally sit down, basically out of frustration, and write the book Easy Money. And where I got the inspiration for my book Easy Money was actually this woman right here. I met her a few years ago, and I was in Bali. And while I was in Bali, somebody had told me, some of the locals said, you need to hike down this very steep, into this steep canyon. There's an amazing waterfall at the bottom of the canyon that you can see, and there's also a rock quarry down there with people working, very interesting. So I hiked down, and during my hike, and it was a very steep gorge to get down here, I came across this woman. She is almost 70 years old, and down in Bali, they use these women as mules. It's just horrible, to haul these heavy stones on their heads out from the rock quarry. And this woman is carrying...
No. Hold on just a second. Show screen 2. It looks like we had a little mix-up here. We weren't going through the slides, so I'm gonna just jump back just to introduce Danny Hooper here.
Boy, I'm glad.
Sorry about that, folks.
We need somebody from NASA. That's what we need.
Let me introduce myself one more time. I am Ian. This is Danny Hooper, and so Danny is, as I mentioned, the author of this book, is a benefit auction specialist and a celebrity auctioneer. So sorry about that, folks. Thanks for letting us know.
All right, so we're talking about this woman that I met in Bali. She's carrying 150 pounds of stone on her head out from this rock quarry, and it was a very, very disturbing experience for me to witness this. And I thought about it, and I wondered, why are they doing it this way? And the answer came to me in 2 parts. In number one, I realized that they were doing it like this because that's the way they've always done it, and secondly, they don't know that there's a better way. And as I thought about this woman, I came to the realization that she is very much like a lot of the nonprofit organizations that I have served for well over 20, almost 30 years. And they continue to do things the same old way.
Right.
Often we see them repeating the same old mistakes, not knowing that there is a much, much better way to organize a fundraising auction event. And in fact, it's not rocket science. Organizing a successful auction is not that difficult. Where the difficulty comes in, I think, for a lot of organizations is the fact that these auction events are organized largely, most of the time, by volunteers who don't know what they don't know. And I once had one of the volunteers say to me, you know what, it's like somebody has dumped a jigsaw puzzle on my desk and they expect me to put it together, and they expect me, my committees, my volunteers to put this puzzle together, and we can't have a look at the picture on the box.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to help provide for everybody today. In conjunction with the book, Ian, a number of years ago, I went to work on a brand new project that I'm very excited to be partnering with you, my friends at Winspire on, and it's called Checklist Builder. And I absolutely, in my deepest heart of hearts, believe this is the most powerful tool and easiest to use tool ever developed for organizing, managing, and executing a successful and profitable fundraising auction. One of the big problems we have, as I said, is that we're dealing with volunteers lots of times. They don't know what they don't know. So Checklist Builder, and we'll come back and visit this later in the program and the webinar this morning, the primary purpose of Checklist Builder is to inform your volunteers what needs to be done. It teaches them how to execute their tasks and then holds them accountable. So whoever is overseeing the entire auction event can monitor everybody's progress in real time. So it's very, very cool. It's called Checklist Builder. I'll be referencing it a lot through the webinar this morning because we don't have a lot of time, or this afternoon, depending where you're listening from. We don't have a lot of time here. We've got about an hour or so. So there's just simply too much content to cover in that hour, but it is all in Checklist Builder, and the rest of it is in my book.
Yep.
We're going to have some fun right now. We're going to conduct a little bit of poll and a little bit of a poll. We'd like to ask you a question. At a typical fundraising auction gala, when do you think is the best time to close the first silent auction section? Now, this assumes that you've got a few sections in your silent auction. When do you think is the best time to close the first silent auction section? Do you think it's before dinner? Would you say it's during dinner, after dinner, or it doesn't really matter? We'll give you a few seconds to respond. And Ian, you're watching the responses. Wow, we got lots of people listening here today.
Yep, lots of people coming in.
Lots of smart people.
You should see a nice little pop-up that gives you the option to answer. But yeah, we're just wondering, when do you think the best time to close the first silent auction section is during your event? And we're going to close the polls here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And you can see here, we have 39% saying before, 25% saying during, and 34% after. Obviously, we have one person who said it doesn't really.
Well, the fact is, it does really matter. This also tells me that we've got a pretty smart group listening to the webinar here today. And the correct answer is, in fact, before dinner, 39%. And the reason we want to do that, one of the common mistakes we see nonprofits doing with their auction galas is they start off with a champagne reception at the beginning of the evening as guests are coming into the ballroom or wherever your venue is. They're having a cocktail, they're socializing, they're visiting with each other. Nobody's paying attention to that silent auction because time really does count. You only have a limited number of hours to make your money during your event. You want them over at that silent auction right away. And the best way to do that is to have your MC or your auctioneer on stage saying to the folks during the cocktail reception, ladies and gentlemen, we will be closing a portion of our silent auction prior to sitting down for dinner. So make sure you get over there, and the good deals are usually the early deals, or the early deals are usually the best deals. So get over to the silent auction right now and to get on it.
All right, sounds like we're having a little bit of issues with the audio, so give us just a second. Come on in. Hold on. Can you guys still hear us? Let's see.
Let's do a poll.
Let's do a poll. Can we do a poll? Most people say yes. Okay. We're just going to keep forging on. If you can't hear us, please let us know in the questions or the chat, and hopefully you guys are able to hear us here. So we're going to continue on with the 3 E's. All right. Thank you.
All right. This is something that we talk about a lot in my book, and we talk about it in Checklist Builder as well, is you need to focus on the 3 E's of a successful fundraising event, and those 3 E's are entertain, engage, and finally extract the money. You need to remember that lots of times your guests are paying good money to be there for an evening, and they deserve to be entertained. You have to hold their attention through the night. You need to extract the money, and to do that, we're going to cover 3 key points here today on how to generate record profits, and the very first point is this. Number 1, you need to stop thinking like a charity and start thinking like a business. Stop thinking like a charity and start thinking like a business, and when you think about it, if you're having a fundraising auction event, it's very much like opening up a store, Ian, that's only going to be open for 4 or 5 hours. Now, you've worked sometimes 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year in advance getting prepared for this evening. The store opens, the people come flooding in. You've got 4 or 5 hours to make your money before it closes again for another entire year.
That's a hard business to run.
Yeah, so you need to be thinking like a business person. And how do business people think? They think in terms of profit. And where does profit come from? Well, the easiest way to increase your profits is, number one, to drive up your revenues. And we're going to have lots of great ideas for you here during the webinar on how to increase your revenue. The other way to grow that profit margin or increase that profit margin is to drive down your expenses. Now, you are going to have expenses with your event. You're paying most of the time for your venue rental. You're paying for your caterer. You're usually paying for your centerpieces and your chair covers and your linens and all the rest of it. And you're going to have certain expenses that are necessary. We're going to talk a little bit later, too, about the importance of having a professional fundraising auctioneer at your event, somebody who knows how to extract that money out of the room. Lots of organizations say that's an expense that we can do without. We've got a local auctioneer who will come in and volunteer his or her time. But in fact, that's never the best solution. And one of the best ways to deal with things like the cost of a professional fundraising auctioneer is to go after what we call an underwriter. And an underwriter is a supporter of your organization, a local philanthropist, or maybe a company that you can go to and say, look, we're looking at bringing a professional auctioneer in who we know is going to increase our results. Would you consider underwriting the cost of that investment? And another great place that this works, and I've seen this work many times as an auctioneer, is when I'm selling the Winspire packages. And I know over the past year and a half, I've noticed increasingly that the Winspire packages at the auctions I've been involved with are underwritten by local philanthropists. So that's really cool when you can say, ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands together for Mr. Bob and Debbie Smith? And they have provided a wonderful Winspire package for us here tonight, tickets to the Super Bowl. So maybe you want to talk a little more about how that works.
For those of you who don't know, Winspire, here we put together unique unique travel packages for nonprofits to offer in their events at no risk. So you don't have to pay any money up front. You simply offer at your event, and any return that you receive above the package cost goes straight to your cause. So securing underwriters is a great way to offset that cost and realize the full return, and also recognize your donors.
Yeah, you can go to donors and say, look, would you consider donating $2,500 cash? They may or may not do that, but lots of times when you approach these donors and say, hey, would you be interested in sponsoring perhaps a girls' weekend, a shopping spree weekend to New York City, that's got a little bit more sex appeal. And
absolutely,
I know that the philanthropists like that a lot better. All right, let's talk about revenue right now, and where should the money come from at your fundraising auction event? Of course, everyone knows the live auction, they know the silent auction, but in fact, there are many, many income streams that you need to consider at the planning stage for your event, and we showed just a few of them here. Now, as you look through this list, you may recognize lots of these things. Some of them may seem a little bit strange or new to you. I can tell you this, they're all described in detail either in the book or in Checklist Builder, which we're introducing at the end of the webinar here today.
Yeah, the important thing about this this slide is to show you just how many income streams there are at your disposal. It's not just a live auction or the silent auction or underwriters or ticket sales. You have so many tools that you can use to really drive up that revenue and increase your fundraising profits. We have a picture of a tree here, and we did that intentionally because you see all the leaves. Picture that as that money that you're trying to raise, and then the roots, and you can see how many different roots there are. Each tendril on that root is going to be a different source of revenue that you're going to pull up, and you really have to have someone who knows what they're doing to run the event and use these tools from the tool shed to really pull out that revenue from the audience.
Like we say, and this leads us nicely into our second point here today, and that is you need to focus on the fundraising. And when do you do this? You do this at the planning stage for your event. It doesn't happen the night of the event. You look at all of those different income streams months before your event as you're sitting down with your planning committees, and you say, okay, here's all these different options, all of these different income streams. Which ones you're not going to use them all, obviously, but which ones do you think will work best for your event? You incorporate them into the agenda at the planning stage for that event. You got to remember that store is only going to be open for 4 or 5 hours. That's a short amount of time. Time in this case, it's now your Super Bowl.
Right.
The doors are open, your ballroom is full, you've worked hard, you've sold the tickets, your crowd is there, they've got money in their wallets, and to that I want to say never ever underestimate the amount of money that is in the room. There's always, I've seen this proven time after time, there's always a lot more money in the room than anybody, including myself, ever estimates. So you've only got a short amount of time to capture that money. Time is your enemy in this case, and you don't want to be wasting any of it. So you want to create a profit plan. Like we say here on the slide, profits don't just happen.
Yeah.
At the planning stage, when you're sitting down, you want to be incorporating all of these or as many of these money-making ideas as you think might be applicable for your cause.
Yeah, it's important to really lay out that plan, decide the tools that you, or methods that you were going to use to draw out that revenue, plan it out, but also be ready to kind of improvise when it when it fits. It always depends on the audience, the size of the event, all these things, but it's very important to really talk about this so you know what the game plan is going into it.
It really gets frustrating for me, Ian, when I'm on stage at an event and there are things going on or things that are in the program that aren't generating a nickel of revenue.
Right.
And during our webinar last month, I told the story of where about a year ago I was shut down in the middle of the live auction. They shut me down for a half an hour so we could watch the chairperson's grade 4 granddaughter tap dance for a half an hour.
Yeah.
It was a $150 ticket event, and I can promise that these people did not pay $150 to come, no matter how good the little tap dancer was.
Right.
Nobody paid $150. The important thing is, she turned off the tap. She turned off the revenue tab that chairperson did during that half hour, and there was no money being made through that period. You always want to look at all of the items in your agenda. Take a look at your speeches, at your videos, at the awards presentations, at every thing that you are incorporating into your program for your event, your agenda, and ask yourself this question: is it an income-producing activity, or is it a non-income producing activity? And I laugh when we look at this little picture, and I can't think of all the great little girl singers, little boy tap dancers that I've seen, and that over the years, very, very talented, but they don't always belong. Now, I got to be careful because we're talking to a lot of organizations that are school groups and things like that. But I'm talking more the major or the larger gala events, medium-sized or larger gala events, and you want to make sure is it income producing or not. So the picture on the left is one of our favorite auctioneers, a professional benefit auctioneer specialist, and he's definitely there. He's making money.
Scott Robertson's a great guy. I just want to say too real quick with this. I mean, it might depend on your organization. Let's say maybe you're a ballet school, then it would be absolutely appropriate for you to maybe have a ballet performance.
Of course.
And that that definitely relates. And in those cases, that's also a good opportunity to set up a cash appeal because you're demonstrating your cause, what you're doing, and then you transition that right into an appeal or a funded need to get people to raise money. As long as it has an income-producing objective and at its core, then you're on the right track.
I can say this. From my experience, lots of these nonprofit event planners, they sit down and they say, gosh, we need entertainment. What are we going to do for entertainment? Oh, somebody says, well, I know a musician. Somebody says, I know a banjo player. I know a singer.
Right.
Let's get somebody in front. You don't always need that type of entertainment, and I can tell you this unequivocally: if you get a really good professional fundraising auctioneer, those people hands down will provide all of the entry. And there's lots of them, and they can be contacted through the national. Oh, now we've got an audio. So people pointing at their ears again.
It looks like, I'm getting all greens on our audio here. Is everyone able to hear us? Can you
just type in if you can hear or not?
Yep.
Got some jokes coming up. You don't want to miss those.
Yeah, right. Somebody, what are you seeing? Okay.
They can hear.
Could just be our
vice president of sales ran in and said she can't hear.
Screaming, I can't hear the webinar.
Pay your cellular.
Yeah, right.
Pay them. All right.
Go ahead.
Anyway, wherever I was.
I was going to say that as far as income producing goes, like Danny just said, having the auctioneer there is just going to be a great, going to be the entertainment for the evening. And that the live auction is actually the place where most of the entertainment should be happening anyway.
If it's a well-organized
that should be the peak.
Auction, you betcha. Time for another poll right now as we get talking about a live auction. What do you think is the ideal number of items for a typical live auction?
Okay, hold on. Yeah, we're getting that. All right, can people hear us now, Sammy? All right. We're just going to keep forging ahead.
We have a huge technical crew here.
We have a whole support army here that's helping us out. But go ahead and I'm going to launch this poll. Let us know what you think as far as the ideal number of items for a typical live auction.
What do you think it is? Half a dozen items, would you say? Do you think it's 8 to 12 items, 15 to 20 items, or as some event planners I work with say, the more the merrier? All right, we'll give you a few seconds to respond here, and the responses are coming in.
Yep.
That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the answer is in the book. We talked about it last time on the last webinar as well, too.
So we're going to close the poll here, and we're going to share the results.
All right.
We have 28% say 6 items, half of you say 8 to 12, and then 15% say 15 to 20, and 2% the more the merrier.
Well, the right answer is actually 8 to 12 items. And the reason for that is no matter how entertaining your auctioneer is, people eventually just tune out from the auctioneer's banter. So as he or she is up there now 25, 25, 5, 25, 30, $30, 35, 35, 40, $40, 45, 45, they're just eventually going to tune out. And once the crowd starts to tune out, then they start talking amongst themselves at the tables, and very quickly it can happen that control of the room can be lost. And once that happens, your event is really, really in trouble. So we like to say 8 to 12 items, and anything more than that, and we have some organizations that do a great job of their auction acquisitions. They come to us and they say, well, we have a problem. We have 20, we have 25 live items. That's not a problem at all. And as we explained in our last webinar, and as we also explained thoroughly in Checklist Builder, you can set something up called a super silent auction. That is a special section of your silent auction. It's a dedicated table where it holds nothing but premium items that were good enough to be in the live auction, but in the interest of saving time, you set up what we call a super silent auction. Typically, it would be your last table to close in the silent auction. It needs special lighting, special signage, and special attention from the stage, from the MC or the auctioneer. And again, we explain everything you need to know about setting up a successful super silent auction in Checklist Builder and also in the book, Easy Money.
Great.
All right, we're going to go to our third point right now, and that is achieve your potential. And we're talking here today about how to generate record profits at your next fundraising auction event. And number one, as we've shared with you, is you need to stop thinking like a charity. You need to start thinking like a business. Secondly, you need to focus on fundraising and making sure that your agenda is packed with money-making activities, income-producing activities. And finally, achieve your potential. And how do we achieve our potential? Well, the easiest way to do that is use the tools and the people that are at your disposal. And as I already touched on a few minutes ago, is make sure that you've got the right auctioneer in the room if you're having a live auction.
Right.
I want to say that the best auctioneers in the world, just like the best doctors or the best lawyers or the best whatever, are specialists. And as we look at this picture, the top left, we see a picture of a Sotheby's auctioneer specializing in an art sale right here. These folks, they're known to specialize in art and antique sales. Over on the top right, we have a livestock auctioneer. Those two auctioneers are going to have very, very different styles. Down on the bottom left, we've all seen Barrett Jackson sales, or most of us have seen Barrett Jackson, probably the best in the world at what they do, selling vintage automobiles. The bottom right, we've got our heavy equipment auctioneers. So all specialists in their field. I can tell you this, you know, we participate in around 100 events, sometimes more than that, each and every year. I would be dead in my tracks if I tried to step into the shoes of any one of these other auctioneers, because these fields are very, very specialized. And I think the same holds true when you get your local cattle auctioneer or your local auto auctioneer to come in and donate his or her time and get them up there to sell your live auction. And the reason I say that can be self-defeating to do that is because those auctioneers aren't equipped with the tools and the techniques and the tricks of the trade that your professional fundraising auctioneers will have.
And that goes, same goes for, you know, a local media personality, maybe news broadcaster. We see that a lot with events where, you know, someone with zero auctioneering experience will get up and, you know, they're a good MC. Maybe they know how to speak on a microphone, but that does not mean that they, you know, are aware of the various income streams and, you know, tools that are at their disposal for really extracting that revenue from the audience.
All right, here's the biggest single difference between your media personality who has volunteered their time to come to your auction or a non-fundraising auction specialist, a regular auctioneer to come in. Here's the biggest difference. Those people are concerned with how much money can I get for this item I'm selling, be it a piece of art, or how much can I get for this this flower vase, how much can I get for whatever they're selling. A fundraising auctioneer, on the other hand, is thinking how much money is in this room at this event and how can we capture it. And when we talk about how much money is in the room, here's a very interesting slide and an interesting point to ponder. Whenever we have an auction, there's one successful bidder. And in this example, we've set up an auction here showing 10 live auction items. Let's assume, for discussion's sake, that they sell for $1,000 a piece. We've generated $10,000 in our live auction. That's pretty good. What I'm always concerned about is what we call the second high bidder. And that was the last person to put their hand up prior to me dropping, or not the last person. The last person's the person that got the item. It's the other, the second I bid, just what it's called. It's the second I bid. Right. Don't confuse me. And don't give me that look of death again, like you scare me. Anyway, so the second I bidder. So in this example, if we're selling something for $1,000, chances are that the second high bid I took would have been $950. We'll multiply that now by 10 people who weren't successful in getting these 10 items. That's $9,500 that we've highlighted in the red. And my question to our listeners today is, where do you think that $9,500 goes if they don't buy something else on the live auction? Mm-hmm. I can tell you this. The people that participate in the live auction, if they're bidding on that trip to New York or that trip to Hawaii or that trip to Las Vegas, and they bid up, say, $950 on that item, just because they didn't get that trip, they're not going to run to the silent auction and spend their $950. This is not money that they brought to the event that they feel has to be spent at the event. Right. So 9 times out of 10, that $9,500 is going to walk right out the door that it walked in at the beginning of the event, and the people are going to take that money home. So you need to have some techniques, tools, tips, strategies to capture that money. And I like to say that your auctioneer at your event is very much like a professional quarterback. And when we look at quarterbacks, there's one that you and I really admire.
We're both from the Pacific Northwest. I'm from Seattle. Dan's from Victoria, and we say, "Go Hawks!"
Go Hawks! You bet.
Wilson. Yeah.
But you know what? The thing is, and I speak from experience here. You know, once the doors to the event open, it's very much like the opening kickoff, yep. And the clock has started ticking, and those teams have so much time to score their points. And at the fundraising auction, once things are underway, that game is underway, you truly don't know what exactly is going to happen. And more importantly, you don't know what opportunities are going to present themselves throughout the evening where you can capitalize and generate unexpected revenue. And here's one thing that I love to do anytime that I'm doing an event where there's a buffet, as opposed to a sit-down meal.
And this was a common question we got at the last webinar. What do you do when there's a buffet and you don't have a sit-down dinner where you can begin the live auction, right?
This is a great opportunity to do what I call an icebreaker auction, and that's an auction that happens very early in the evening. Often after we have people seated, I'll do an icebreaker, maybe sell a flat screen TV and sell it for $20 or $25 just to get people's attention and set up a little entertainment. But another icebreaker is when you have a buffet, what I like to do is I like to sell the first table to go to the buffet line. Now, I know that the people sitting in the crowd are out there wondering, well, why would I want to bid on that? I've already bought a ticket to be here tonight. I've already paid good money to be here. I expect to be fed. But what I do is I say, well, folks, the reason you might want to consider bidding on the first table to go to the buffet line is because we have 250 guests here tonight, but we only have enough food for 240 of you. So the crowd chuckles a little bit. Then I say, the other reason you might want to consider bidding on this is whoever is successful and buys this opportunity to be the first table to the buffet line, you also get to choose which table in the room here tonight goes last. So if you're in a community where you've got a bunch of friends, maybe business competitors in the room. I had an event here about 3 years ago in a town that was very largely centered around the oil industry, the oil and natural gas industry, and at the time, a lot of very wealthy, successful businessmen in the room, these oilmen. And anyway, the first guy bid $8,000, Ian, $8,000 to be, so obviously he's just, putting on a show, and $8,000 to be the first table to dinner. Well, of course, he singled out his #1 competitor in town. What I did then is I ran over to the competitor's table and
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I ran over to the competitor's table and I said, sir, let me ask you this. Would you agree to match his $8,000 bid if I could convince him to let you go second to the buffet line? He said, absolutely. So, of course, the first bidder allowed that. We had $16,000 before the event was even really underway. So that's an opportunity that you can jump on where there's a buffet.
Love it. Sorry if the audio is kind of touch and go here, but I really appreciate your guys' patience if you're going to stick with us. So we're just going to keep pushing on.
All right, very good. We should tell people we got a special offer coming up here in just a few minutes as well.
That's true. If you stick around, absolutely. With Checklist Builder.
All the professional fundraising auctioneers know this technique, and it's called a double up. And that's where you've sold an item, and as soon as you've sold it, let's go back to that $9,500 example there that we looked at a few minutes ago. So we've sold an item, say, for $1,000. The second high bidder was at $950. I'll turn to the second bidder and I'll say, sir, if we could get an identical package for you. Suppose we just sold a dinner. It's a rotary auction. We've sold a dinner at the president's house for 8 people and it brought $1,000. I'll turn to the second high bidder and I'll say, if we can get you your own dinner at the president's house, would you consider matching that top bid of $1,000? Most of the time, that second high bidder will say, yes, absolutely. It's just another $50. And chances are, if it's the rotary auction, the president is right there and doesn't want to see that other $1,000 bill walk out the room. So most of the times they'll agree to double up on the item.
And what about, I mean, does it matter if you didn't get that permission from the vendor to procure that item, a second item?
You know, if the vendor is in the room, if the donor of the item is in the room, lots of times they're caught up in the excitement. It's an opportune time to ask them, and you can do it gently and politely, and so as not to intimidate or embarrass them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always set it up that way. I said, folks, you know, if we don't want to embarrass you, but just thought we would ask. I'll be bold and ask, would you mind doing a second dinner? And 99% of the time they'll say absolutely. Now, if you've sold dinner at a restaurant, let's say, and the owner of the restaurant is not there, but we got incredible money for an item. Suppose we got $5,000 for dinner and wine at a fancy restaurant in town. Lots of times I will double up on that. I'll just do that, take that second $5,000, knowing that we can go and pay the restaurant for a second dinner out and probably still make a good margin of profit in there. So you have to examine the numbers.
That's all about profit. It's all about profit.
It's all about profit and being able to double up, and sometimes you can triple up, quadruple up, and that's one of the beauties, I think, Ian, and I don't want this to sound self-serving or like a commercial for you, but obviously you folks do a great job here at Winspire providing these incredible travel experiences, and that's the one thing as an auctioneer that I like about selling Winspire product, as I know whenever I sell a package I can automatically double, triple, quadruple. In fact, I think the most I ever did on a single Winspire item was we got 6 people to take the same item.
Incredible.
And talk very quickly about how the Winspire packages work.
Yeah, again, so all of our packages are offered on a no-risk basis, so you don't pay anything to put it in your event. But you know, once it sells above that package cost. We usually recommend you put that price, the reserve price or starting bid price, 20% above the package cost, so you're guaranteed a return. And then, as Danny mentioned, one of the best parts about being able to use no risk or consignment travel like this is being able to sell it as many times as you need. You can sell a single package to large groups so that everyone can go on the same package together. And when you do that and you're selling it to multiple people, you're, as you said, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your revenue on that single item. And it's no extra time on your hands as the organizer.
Yeah, it works like magic, you bet. The next technique we're going to share with you, we talked about this in our initial webinar last month, and that's what we call the super signature technique. And in this particular photograph, we have Miss Rodeo Canada holding up a picture of a helicopter. And I was doing an auction for our medevac service, our helicopter medevac service back in Canada, and it's called Stars Air Ambulance. And this is a picture of the rescue helicopter at a crash scene. They wanted me to auction the picture off. We had maybe 500 people in the crowd that night. I thought the picture might go for maybe $300, maybe $400. What I did instead, and I did this on the fly, it wasn't pre-planned, it just kind of happened, but again, it was one of those magic moments that led to the creation of what is now becoming a very popular technique for dealing with these kinds of items or original artwork, the super signature technique. What I did is I called the helicopter pilot onto the stage, and I asked him, I said, Captain, I said, how much is it to fly the helicopter per hour? And he said, the fuel cost is $1,000. Well, I turned to the audience and I said, folks, I said, how many of you would pledge $1,000 to buy an hour's worth of fuel? And how many of you would underwrite an hour's worth of fuel? And look what happened. We had 17 hands go up in just a couple of minutes. We collected 17,000. So what I did then is I said, look, everybody that pledged an hour's worth of fuel and pledged $1,000, which, by the way, lots of times you can issue a charitable tax receipt for those kinds of donations. You need to check with your accounting people. I said, what we'll do is we'll have you come up and autograph the back of this photo. Then we're going to have a plaque made up, and we'll engrave on the plaque everybody's name who signed the back of the photo, and we'll take this photo and we'll hang it in the airport, which is a public space, and everybody will be able to acknowledge your generous donation.
And donors, if there's one thing donors appreciate, right, and you can't hate them for this fact, is they just love recognition, right? They want to be recognized for making that donation, and whether it's public recognition, they're at the event, or being able to sign something so that goes up into a public space. you know, they want to know, they want to feel recognized for the contribution they made to your cause.
Yeah, and if you're already working with a good auctioneer, make sure you inform them of this technique if they're not aware of it. And it works beautifully when you're selling original artwork like an oil painting. Lots of times we have the artist in the audience, and original art, as we know, is very subjective in its value. And even though in the program it may say this painting is worth $5,000, I've had nights when I've been stuck at $200 or $300 on a painting. I'll immediately revert to the super signature technique, and I'll say, folks, I'll be the first to pledge $100 or $500 or whatever. Whoever joins me will sign the back of the painting here, or maybe the back, just the back of the frame.
Right.
And with the artist's permission, then we'll have a plaque made up, and then we'll hang this beautiful painting in the local children's hospital or the library or City Hall or a public space where everybody can appreciate it.
Love it.
We're going to talk about a technique we touched on in our first webinar. We had a ton of questions surrounding the wildcard auction. Lots of people said that they have tried it. They absolutely love it. The wildcard auction is a way of capturing extra revenue at your event. And what it is, we came up with the idea for this a few years ago after I had repeatedly heard from people attending my auctions. People would come up at the end and say, Danny, I would have been happy to donate an item to your live auction, but nobody asked me. So after hearing this for years and years, one night I took a package of these colored index cards, which you can buy at Staples or any office supply store, and I placed a couple of the colored cards on the table, and at the event I said, folks, if this evening you would like to make a donation to the auction, please write your name, your phone number on the card, and the item you would like to donate. I've had a parish priest donate what he calls a pew with a view, and that was guaranteed front row seating at midnight mass on Christmas Eve in one of the Catholic churches.
That's great.
I've had all kinds of things. We'll show you right now. The very first time I did this, as a matter of fact, was for a local Rotary auction, and the very first night I did this, and that's already probably 5 or 6 years ago, we made $46,500 off the floor. Now, the beauty of the wild card auction, Ian, is lots of times people who perhaps a week before the event might not have made a donation even if you asked them. Now they're at the event, they get caught up in the excitement and all of the emotion, they get caught up in the cause, they see their friends, you know, around the room making donations, they get swept up in it all, and they're more likely to make a donation. And here's a perfect case in point. This was a reason that I did. And look at the items that came up in the wild card auction and the money that they generated down at the bottom. The local town doctor donated a painless vasectomy, believe it or not, that generated $7,600.
My God.
I actually sold it. I had 2 bidders going on this thing, which is crazy because where I live, you can have this done for free.
Yeah.
I think the Medicare system pays for it back in Canada. But we had 2 bidders on this, so we actually doubled up, and we sold it to both of them for $3,800. The doctor was there, and after I sold it to the first bidder, I could see why he paid $3,800. His wife jumped up and said, woohoo! And she was about 8 months pregnant. So then I went to the second bidder to go for that double up that we talked about.
Of course, yep.
And the doctor's there. I said, good doctor, I said, any chance I could get an extra couple of snips? Would you consider 2 more snips? And I said, I can pick up an extra $3,800. So he said, absolutely. And there you go. We made $7,600 for a real nice total in that wild card auction. So again, to illustrate my point, a week before the event, you would not have even thought to go to the local town doctor to have a vasectomy donated.
Right.
That wouldn't even cross anybody's mind.
Or a live buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. Number 2, had you have asked the doctor for a painless vasectomy like a week or 2 before the event, he probably would have said no. Nobody's going to bid on that.
Right.
But here now we're at the event. He sees the buffalo coming up and the Costa Rica holiday, and he's thinking, what have I got that I can donate? Well, I'm a urologist. I'll donate a vasectomy. So anyway, it worked beautifully. Neat technique that we use once in a while is called a purse snatcher auction. This is a lot of fun, and this idea was born at an event I was attending and working at where there were 7 ladies' purses on the silent auction, but they had all 7 purses as one lot. So they weren't all set apart as 7 different lots. There was one lot with 7 purses. So we didn't have it was a small crowd at the event, and I didn't think we'd get anywhere near what the purses were worth. So we took the 7 purses, we handed them to volunteers, and had the volunteers run through the audience very quickly and collect cash. So I said to the people, please reach in your pockets, your purses. If you've got a little extra cash, dump it in a purse. They collected, I think it was $600, just about $700 in all of the purses. We took all of that money. It was counted, and then all of that money was hidden in one of the purses, which I then proceeded to sell live in the auction as kind of a wild card kind of a deal. So we sold all 7 purses, had all 7 people come up, opened the purse. One lucky fella, it was a gentleman, bought the purse for his wife, and he had $700 cash. In total, we raised, I think it was $3,950 off that. So again, this is just a little different way that fundraising auctioneers think.
And let me just put in here real quick. I mean, I think what this, all of this illustrates is what Danny's been able to show is that he's able to think on his feet, and he's able to feed off the audience, look for opportunities, and oftentimes that can be the difference between flat fundraising and raising an extra 10, even tens of thousands of dollars at your event. It's just really important. I want to say also there's a lot of really good questions rolling in here. Don't worry, we're looking at them. We're going to answer them at the Q&A session at the end here. So just sit tight, and we will get there.
Yeah, and Ian, I want to say that the reason I'm able to do this is what I've been trained to do, and this is what we as benefit auction specialists are trained to do. And to find somebody in your area who is qualified, you can contact the National Auctioneers Association, and I think there's a section on there where you can search for BAS, which is Benefit Auctioneer Specialists. They have the special certification and designation confirming that they've been trained in these techniques. We're going to talk very quickly now about a very, very important thing you should be incorporating at your event, and that is a cash appeal. We talked about these in our first webinar, and a cash appeal is also known as a fund a need, fund an item, fund a cause. You need to understand that a lot of people attending your event are already have enough stuff, and a lot of people just aren't interested in buying more stuff, be it from the silent auction or the live auction. Nonetheless, they're there to support your cause, and if you've done a good job triggering them emotionally, they will open their wallets and they're happy to give cash. I've seen it happen time and time again. But there are 4 requirements that you need for a successful and incredible cash appeal, and the first one is that emotional trigger. Now, when do you incorporate a cash appeal into your event? There's different schools of thought on that. We cover those in Checklist Builder and also in my book, Easy Money. We don't have a lot of time to get into that now, but in my role as a fundraising auctioneer, I'm always looking for that opportune moment, and you don't always know when it's going to happen, but I like to say when there's not a dry eye in the house, that's when we go after the cash. And as callous as that sounds, that's the business side of it. I was doing an event back in Canada about a year ago, and it was a suicide prevention event. And they had a young boy get up and speak. He was about 12 years old, and sadly, he had lost his mother to suicide. And money was being raised to support the local hospice, and they have a child's grieving program. And that little boy stood at the podium that night, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "it's been very difficult for my brother and I." He said, "I want to thank the people from the local hospice for their child support program." And he said, "They've really helped my brother and I over the past year." He said, "I wish every child that has lost a parent like this could afford to go to the child support program at the hospice, but they can't because it costs $1,000 for each kid." And he started to cry, and he walked away from the podium. And there was that moment, and he just had that crowd right in the palm of his hand. And I walked up to the podium and I said, "Folks, I'll be the first to pledge $1,000 to sponsor or underwrite one of these children." I said, "Who would join me?" And we had 56 other hands go up. So $57,000 it was in just a couple of minutes, and that again was not a planned part of the program or the evening, but the opportunity arose and we were able to seize it. You need to have bid cards if you're planning to have a cash appeal, and that's often these, you start asking for cash in varying amounts. People hold their cards up, their bid paddles up in various amounts. You need to be able to capture that information very, very quickly to make sure that you're able to collect on all of that money. If you're not using bid cards, it's very easy when people are swept up in the emotion to put their hand up and say, "Yeah, I'll give $100 or $500 or $1,000, but lots of times they forget that pledge by the time the evening is over, and they'll walk right past the cashier table. So we want to make sure that we capture them. So always go with your bid cards. Checklist Builder and the book tell you how to get your bid cards designed properly so they're most effective. Then you want to have 3 people recording the numbers as they're called out from the Master of Ceremonies or the auctioneer. And this is a sample form that we have embedded in Checklist Builder. You can download this form along with countless other resource materials. All the forms and templates, everything you need for your auction is in Checklist Builder. But here's one of them. It's a cash appeal recording form, and it's pretty self-explanatory. But as the auctioneer is calling out the bid card numbers, he or she will start. Who will donate $5,000? All right, we have bid card number 120. bid card number 115, bid card number 103. And then once that dries up, you'll say, all right, 2,500, and descend accordingly. You can put whatever numbers are appropriate for your size and type of event, but this is a sample that you can use. So you want to have 3 people recording those numbers. If you have only 1, something can be missed. If you have 2, there can be a discrepancy in the data that's collected. If you have 3, there's a final in there. Cash appeals, timing is crucial. You're looking for that emotional moment. Check and see if you can issue a charitable tax receipt for that portion of the event. Sometimes it can influence people's decision to participate. And finally, you want to prime the pump. And by that, I mean that if you have somebody as a known supporter of your cause going to be at the event that night, and you're planning to incorporate a fund a need or fund an item, you can approach them and say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we know you're great supporters. We're planning a cash appeal tonight. Can we count on your support? Would you agree to put your hand up first when the auctioneer starts? And that kind of gets things going. I did a big auction. Did a big auction just on Monday night for a hospital foundation, and they were raising money for these external pacemakers. And in my speaking notes, it said we need to raise money for 5 of these pacemakers. They're $5,000 a piece. Even though it said ask for 5 in my notes, I got bold. I said, folks, we need 10 of these. And in fact, we had 12 people put their hands up. So you wouldn't have got it unless you asked. So when you're doing the cash appeal, be bold and don't be afraid to ask. So a lot of information. There's no way we can cover it all in a short webinar, but we'll tell you where you can get all the answers. We just want to recap today's points. Number 1, to generate record profits at your next fundraising auction, stop thinking like a charity, start thinking like a business.
Number 2, you want to focus on the fundraising. Make sure that your focus throughout the event with every agenda item has that focus on the fundraising. And number 3,
you want to achieve your potential, and to do that, use the tools that are at your disposal. And I'd like to take just a second to mention the book here if anybody is interested in ordering a copy. Like I said in our first webinar, this book is kind of like 50 Shades of Grey for fundraising. It's a riveting read, I'll tell you what. But it is jam-packed with great money-making ideas for you. It's only $20, and you can contact us at dannyhooper.com. As well, if you'd like me to come down and do your auction, we'd be happy to talk to you. And otherwise, make sure you check with your National Auctioneers Association and to find a benefit auctioneer specialist.
One thing that's really cool about that book is that all of that content, that intellectual knowledge, is put right into Checklist Builder. So we're going to take a second here before we open it up for Q&A, just to show you guys a little bit about what we have in terms of Checklist Builder and where you guys can go sign up. I'm going to exit out here just real quick, and you guys can see here the website is checklist.winspireme.com. It's a full tool suite of tools that you can use on any device, whether it's your computer or your tablet or your mobile phone. It can be checked from anywhere, and it's a full checklist of all the things you need to do throughout your event, pre-event, during the event, or post-event, and it provides resources for each step along the way.
We've designed this in so nothing falls through the cracks. I probably get to half a dozen fundraising auctions a year where the doors open and suddenly a volunteer's running around screaming, where are the pins for the silent auction? Where are the pins for the silent auction? So those little details, we've tried to capture them all and include them in Checklist Builder.
And you can see here, this is the home screen for the organizer, the event director. You can see all the various committees in here. Little progress symbols show you how far you are on all the checklist items. You can see the committee chairs that you can assign over here on the right. And within each committee is this list of to-do items. And within each one, you can assign tasks. Within each task, you have a task overview along with recommendations and links to view. I'm going to show you just a couple of resources here. Within the silent and live auction, you can see items that are checked here. The folks on the right are the volunteers that are assigned those, and when you assign someone a task, they get an email and they can come back and view it very easily. When they click down into the task, you can see these recommendations here. Print Silent Auction Simplified. Here's an example of one resource that this is an 18-page document all about the silent auction, best practices, and things like that. And then once they've printed it off, the volunteer can go in and check it off. And then you, as the event director, get to see that that's checked off, and you can see, make sure that you have full control over what's going on in your event. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say the Checklist Builder, as I said earlier, was designed to manage all of your volunteers. It assigns them tasks, shows them very clearly how to execute those tasks, and then holds everybody accountable so the event planner can stay right on top of everything in real time. Because as these tasks are checked off, they do feedback to the event planner in real time.
Cool. And so this is just kind of another example of a resource here as you go through. And it's a very, very cool tool. I'll show you real quick before I show you how to sign up. Here's what what a committee chair would see. You can see Stephanie Brown. I'm logged into Stephanie Brown here. She can go in and just see the committees that she's either chairing or she has tasks within. You can see her is right here. And so it really gives you the power as the event director to see what's going on throughout the planning process and then give your team the tools they need to do their job effectively. So and as far as signing up goes, we're going to go right back into here. And you can sign up. We're going to be offering this as a complete package for $99 a year. As a subscription base, you're going to get to create unlimited events, whether it's a golf event, whether it's a charity auction, whether it's anything else. You get countless resources, as well as that easy volunteer management.
It should be $9,000 a year is how much, but we didn't think anybody would sign up at that.
Again, yeah, all the things we talked about today and much, much more goes into much more detail are going to be included in this. You can also sign up for free at checklist.winspireme.com. If you sign up for free, you get 2 committees that are unlocked, and you get the resources within. You get the steering committee and the silent and live auction committee. Within the silent live auction committee comes a bunch of the resources that we put out there on Winspire News, which is the bid sheet templates, the sponsorship packets, the procurement packet, things of that sort. So you can sign up for free to use it. Just try it out, and then if you feel like you want to purchase it, you can go ahead. But for you folks out there, for registering for the webinar, we're going to offer a special offer, 20% off your first year with the promo code BUILDER20. So BLDR20 when you check out, you get 20% off your first year.
All right. We really want to impress upon everybody as well that when you're in any of those committees, it's exceedingly easy to delete tasks and add tasks. So what we've done, Ian, we've taken the best of our collective knowledge, we've incorporated it, dumped it all into Checklist Builder, so we have these enormous pre-populated checklists and layers of information nested within Checklist Builder. If there's stuff that doesn't apply to your event, simply delete it. It's so easy, and you can replace it with tasks of your own.
Right.
I had an event, interesting, old fella called us and he said, you know what, there's no place in here for ashtrays. We need ashtrays. And, well, he was some community where you can still smoke in the local hall, I guess. And so we explained it. Just go ahead and put it in yourself. And he did, and he was happy. So Checklist Builder, as we said at the beginning of the webinar, we believe this is an incredibly powerful tool. We think it's going to revolutionize the way that fundraising auction events are planned and organized.
Great. So yeah, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions, you're going to see a little chat window in the lower right-hand corner. That's going to be I'm going to be there along with my assistant Sumi. We're going to be answering any questions you have about the platform. But we hope you guys give it a try and really use it to your advantage. So with that, we're going to open it up to Q&A. We have a lot of great questions here that we're going to get to. Denise Duff, what is the average number of income streams and how much is too many?
Well, you know, I would probably, just as a blanket thing, I would say let's look at getting 6 to 8 maybe different, and it depends on the size of your event, how many hours you have to work with, but let's say, for example, we're talking a kind of a typical Rotary Club auction. 6 or 8 income streams doesn't take very long to fill out. You got your live auction, your silent auction, your super silent auction. You might have a couple of different raffles. You're going to do your wild card auction, you're going to do your cash appeal, and then you might want to throw one of the fun ones in, like a purse snatcher, or we've got the hidden pickle, or we've got all kinds of neat fun ones that you can have. Now, I was doing a Rotary auction back in the fall. They must have had 20 different income-producing activities incorporated into that evening, and I said to the planner of the event, the Rotary auction chair, I said, you're out of your mind. I said, there's no way this will work and that we'll end this event on time. Well, it worked like a Swiss clock. It was absolutely perfect. She had everything fine-tuned, and it was well executed, and what they eliminated was the long, boring speeches, you know, the tap dancing show and all of that kind of stuff, and they just focused on the fundraising. And it's amazing how much you can cram into the program, but at the same time, you never want to get to that point where your guests are feeling nickeled and dimed like you're coming up. And that's another reason why you want to have bid card numbers, and increasingly we're noticing that a lot of these events will allow people to buy their raffle tickets, do all of their bidding in the silent auction and super silent auction using that bid card number.
Right. It sounds like your example, they had a great profit plan in
place.
Yeah, huge
profit plan in place. Yeah.
Where do we get auctioneers? The National Auctioneer Association website we mentioned. You can go there to get auctioneer in your area, or we are happy to provide referrals. If you talk to your Winspire fundraising specialist, we know all of the great auctioneers in your area that we would love to send your way. I know Danny is always open to looking at events as well. So
yeah, travel. Give us a call at dannyhooper.com. We can help you find somebody, or we can come down and help you.
Deborah Miller, what comes first during a live auction, the fun need or the experiences?
Well, we have a great question. And in our first webinar, we had a graph. You draw a bell graph or a bell curve, and typically you want to put your most valuable or highest priced live auction item at the top of that bell curve.
Right.
And last time we used an example of a safari to Africa. You don't want to leave that as the last item in your live auction, because if you have 2 or 3 bidders in the crowd that are waiting to bid on that, and it's the last item, it sells to one person. You've got 2 or 3 other people that a moment ago had their hand up at $15,000 or $20,000. Now they've got nothing else to spend that big money on. So in that case, I would put the cash appeal up at the top of the bell curve, right behind your most expensive item or 2. So that's one way to do it if you're pre-planning where to do the cash appeal. If you know that you've got a really emotional or compassionate video that you're showing. I did one in Edmonton a couple of years ago, and it was raising money for cancer, for breast cancer research. Came off a very emotional video. We needed to raise $250,000 to pay off a mortgage on a residential facility, a cancer treatment residential facility. And I turned to the audience. I said, how many people would pledge $10,000? Do we have 25 people here who would do that? In fact, in 90 seconds, we had 35 people put their hand up.
Wow.
So if you know you're coming off a really good emotional video, if you know there's going to be a moment in the evening where you've got that emotional trigger, plan to do your cash appeal right then. And that can happen early in the evening before the live auction. It can happen during the live auction. It can even happen after the live auction. Every case is unique.
Great. Let's see here.
Don't give me any questions I can't answer.
Right. Madonna Wilson, what is the benefit of closing silent auction in stages versus closing all at once?
By closing in stages, what we do, and this is assuming if you have a small live auction or a small silent auction, you've only got maybe 20 items, put them into one section, that's fine. But my experience has been that most events have lots of silent auction items, and they're spread out over 2 or 3 different sections. And what we're looking to do is create what we call compression. So we close, say, the red section first. We want everybody over focused on that red section. We create bidding energy over there and excitement, and there's bidding competition going on in the red section. People that are interested in an item on the green or yellow section, they don't have to worry. Just focus everybody on the red section. Now we've closed it. Now we're going to say, we're going to give you 10 minutes now. We're going over to the yellow section. Then we move everybody over, create that same bid on the yellow section. And that definitely will drive your values up if you do it that way. So again, if you have lots of items, spread them out over a number of sections and create that excitement and compression.
Very cool. Sue Consulman, do you reserve a certain amount of time for the wildcard auction? Who vets the cards prior to your auctioning them off?
Sue, great question. That's a very good question. I like to vet those myself. I like to have those cards brought up to the podium, so I'll go through them. Lots of times I'll do that in conjunction with the auction chair if he or she is close by. From my experience, I kind of know which items I think will bring the good money. You don't deal with all of them. If you have great response and you have 20 cards come up, obviously that's too many. In that case, depending how the evening or event is rolling along, I might pick 4 or 5 of the best or a half a dozen of the best. I've had evenings where we've had only 4 items in the live auction, regular live auction, and in that case we've dealt sometimes with maybe a dozen wild card items. So I also want to mention too that in executing the wild card auction, you're going to have that card, that little index card, that colored index card come forward first. It'll have the name of the donor, phone number, and the auction item. We have a PDF in Checklist Builder of a wild card tracking sheet. And this is a form that you can print up. So once the card comes up to the stage, then that tracking sheet is taken by one of the volunteers out to the donor of that item, and that's where we collect a little more information from that donor, a little more clarification on that item, and then after it's sold to somebody in the crowd, that tracking sheet goes out to the successful bidder, and he or she acknowledges their purchase of that wild card item. They put their information in there as well too. So it becomes just like a regular auction acquisition form.
Very cool. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's see, Sarah Wanos. Would a funded need part of a live auction be included in the 8 to 12 items? What is the typical starting amount of a funded need for a first-time live auction?
The only way to answer that question is to answer, what are you raising the money for? Suppose we're doing a hospital foundation and raising money for incubators, and an incubator is, well, I did an auction just last weekend, last Sunday, as a matter of fact, for a hospital foundation, and they do a golf tournament on the Sunday, Monday, and on the Sunday night they have a gala at the clubhouse. And they were raising money for incubators. I think they were $20,000 an incubator. So in that case, I would start by saying, who would underwrite the entire investment to purchase an entire incubator? And you don't know unless you ask. And lots of times there's business people or philanthropists and supporters who will put their hand up and say, we'll sponsor an entire incubator. So, if it's that kind, you just have to use your discretion. What are you raising the money for? And how excited can you get the people in the audience?
From Monica Fleming, do you think there should be different closing times with silent auctions using mobile bidding devices to avoid distractions during the live auction?
My experience has been that I don't think the mobile bidding devices detract from the live auction. Again, that might just be personal style. I don't know how to say this. I try and keep lots of energy on the stage. And lots of humor on the stage, and find I don't have a problem kind of keeping the attention of the crowd. So if some people want to use the mobile bidding devices and keep on with the silent auction, personally it doesn't bother me. Probably other auctioneers might have a different opinion.
Got it.
So, but if it is an issue for your auctioneer and he or she would rather not have that going on during the live auction, that's a question you need to ask the auctioneer and try and respect their wishes, I would say. And the other warning I would just issue right now is never, ever, ever think about closing your regular silent auction where people have to get up and go bid on the silent bid sheets. Never close that during the live auction.
Yeah.
You want everybody's attention during the live auction. Either close your silent before the live auction or after. My preferred way of doing it is to do it right after the live auction. You give people a half an hour to go play with the silent auction, get that all closed up, then bring them back to their seats to do your raffle draws, your door prize draws, your closing remarks, things like that. And you want to do that for 15 minutes or so your cashiers have time to take all those silent auction sheets and process, to do their work and process those bid sheets.
And if I remember correctly, you said, if you're closing in stages, it's always good to close your first silent auction before dinner.
Yeah, before dinner, let those sheets go. Get cashiers and get the jump start on that, absolutely. But the way to drive your cashiers absolutely insane is to close the silent auction and let people charge out there right away to start paying it. That isn't going to happen.
Right. This is a good one. I had the same question earlier today. What is the hidden pickle?
What is the hidden pickle technique? I use this at Festival of Trees events, and most major cities have a Festival of Trees event in the fall leading up to the Christmas season. And in Edmonton, for the University Hospital Foundation, they have a bunch of beautifully decorated trees that are set up in pods around the room. They have about 1,000 guests, and the event's been going many, many years. I think I've done their event now for over 20 years. And they were finding it harder for people, or harder to sell these trees every year in the silent auction. They sell most of their trees, well, all of their trees they sell just by silent auction. So they found people were coming in early in the evening and getting a glass of champagne, standing around the bars and mingling and visiting, and not getting out looking at the beautifully decorated trees in the silent auction. So we came up with an idea for them based on an old German tradition where a dill pickle is hung on the family Christmas tree on Christmas Eve, and the first child who finds the hidden dill pickle gets an extra gift. So we went out, we bought one of those little glass ornament pickles. We had the hospital foundation hang the pickle on one of those trees, and there were dozens of trees in the room, and whoever found the pickle, that qualified them to fill out an entry form to go into a draw barrel for a $5,000 diamond bracelet.
Oh,
well, all the women were out there looking at the trees, and the more they looked at the trees, the more they realized how spectacular these trees were. The bid sheets were right there on music stands by each tree,
nice.
And they had 2 years, this was 2 years ago, they had a record silent auction at their Festival of Trees. So the hidden pickle technique, that's what that one is. You need to be creative and come up with and there are, if you're coming up with an idea and you're wondering if it's going to work, and I certainly don't have all of the good ideas, and I didn't create all of these ideas. These have been collected over the years and seeing what different volunteer groups come up with. But if you're testing an idea, does it pass that three-way test? Is it entertaining? Is it engaging? And is it going to extract money?
That's really important. Absolutely. I've got a quick question here about Checklist Builder. How long is the 20% offer good for? It'll be good for about a week or two. in order to purchase, but you can, the free committees are available throughout, so you will always have access to the free committees. One question here from Dana Whitburn: when ticket prices are higher than $600 a piece plus, wow, would you still recommend 6 additional revenue streams?
Absolutely, because the revenue streams are entertaining.
Yep.
Right? They should be entertaining. So if you're doing a wild card auction, that's entertaining. People enjoy participating in that. Super silent auction is a great way to deal with extra premium items that could have been in your live auction, but you want to save some time. So definitely, yeah. There's no magic. There's no fixed number. You just, a lot of this is, the answers to these specific questions should come from your auctioneer. So whoever you're dealing with,
Always depends.
A professional fundraising auctioneer is going to provide free consulting service to you, and don't be afraid to ask her or ask him those questions, because they've had the experience and they'll take a microscopic look at the peculiarities of your individual event, and they will be able to provide qualified answers to you.
From Rosalind McGinnis, excuse me, is there an ideal number of silent auction items? I can answer that. That's absolutely true, depending on your audience size. So you want to have one auction item for every buyer's unit in the room. And a buyer's unit is a couple.
We
right?
call that a couple. Yeah, we call that a buyer's
yeah.
unit. Some auctioneers refer to them as a wallet. How many wallets do you have in the room? And
exactly.
we consider a couple to be a single wallet. So you say 1, I say 1 to 1.5 sometimes.
Yep.
Some people have differing opinions on that, but at the very least, and don't fill your silent auction with junk. You don't need the embroidered ball caps,
baskets,
and logoed coffee tumblers and things like that. Typically, don't make great live auction or silent auction items. So bundle those types of things in, and throw in some gift certificates for a restaurant, and put some sizzle. If you have too many silent auction items, bundle.
Bundle them together, so you can create themed packages. Absolutely.
And you're trying to create a balanced market.
Yep.
You don't want a seller's market. A seller's market is where there are too few items.
Too few items.
And
a buyer's market is where there's too many buyers.
Too many buyers, yeah.
Yep. And then if there's a buyer's market and there's too many buyers for all the items, then, or excuse me, it's the opposite. There's too many items for the number of buyers. They can go around and they're just cherry picking, and they want to leave one bid on each item, hoping that they'll win it. So yeah. You definitely want to have a nice little equilibrium there. It's a good supply and demand. We actually have a great blog post on that. Winspire News.
And I would say too, don't be afraid to try some of the Winspire packages in your silent auction or your super silent auction. Another great place to place those fabulous packages.
Let's see here. So from Jackie, how do you incorporate a casino night as an income stream together with live and silent auctions?
That's a good one. Casino night typically poses some unique challenges in that people are usually standing up and milling around. And you'll see that at these tasting events as well, which are becoming increasingly popular, where there is no plated meal, but people are moving from food station to food station. What I like to do, if we're incorporating the live auction, silent auction is no problem. Just set that up as you normally would. But if you're having a live auction, we like to set up a number of chairs, depending on the crowd that you have there. But take a percentage of the people in the room and set up chairs for maybe 25 or 30% of those people right up at the front of the stage. Set them up theater style. Then when I'm going to start the live auction, I'll say, folks, we're getting started here. Come on, get off your feet for a few minutes. And if you're going to participate in the live auction, please have a seat. And I found it very easy to capture people's attention that way in that circumstance.
Great. This is a good question. Do you want to keep your silent auction items in the same room as the live auction?
I've seen it work both ways. Ideally, I like to have them in the room. I like to have everybody in the same room at all times, especially if I'm emceeing an event, and that way you can kind of quarterback a little bit better, and as opportunities present, you know, it's easier to, lots of times what happens, you'll put the silent auction in another room and they don't have PA equipment. They don't have audio equipment in that other room. So there's no way to make announcements in there to get people back into the main room. Poses unique challenges having it in a separate room. So I like to have everybody in the same room, given the choice.
I like this question. How do you decide which, or does it matter, which silent auction items to go when you're closing in stages, your silent auction? Is there any rhyme or reason, or how do you decide which silent auctions go into each different group value levels? Are they similar items? That was from Terry Kovacs. Thanks, Terry.
Well, lots of times you'll see them themed. So you'll see the home and garden items in one section. You'll see artwork in another section. You'll see children's items in another section. So you can certainly do it by theme. Value, I always believe it's best to sprinkle across the board and have at every silent auction section, every section of the silent auction, have a mix of values because you don't want to eliminate anybody. You want everybody over there participating.
I think, let's see here. In closing the silent auction section, do you close the section with the most expensive items last? Or does it, I think you just might have answered that.
Silent auction? Yeah, not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
No. Well, now having said that, pardon me, she may have been asking about the super silent, because your super silent auction should definitely close last, and it definitely does have your most expensive items will be in the super silent. So if we're talking the regular silent auction, values don't matter so much relative to closing, but definitely your super silent auction is going to have premium live auction quality items, and it should be the last of the silent auction to close.
Cool. Getting a couple more questions about the 20% offer. It's going to last for 2 weeks, and then it's going to be closed out. So definitely redeem it before then if you can. And let's see. As far as raffles go, what's the best time to announce the raffle winners?
At the end of the, like I said, after we've closed the silent auction. Now, my favorite formula for an event is live auction during the dinner, and not as soon as people sit down to eat. Let them have their first course. Once the main course is set, once they're about halfway through the main course, that's when I like to start the live auction because everybody's seated. We have their undivided attention. There's food in their mouth, and there's less chatter at the table chatter going on, so it's easier to get and hold their attention. I like to close the silent auction after the live auction. Then we do the raffle draws to bring people back to their seats so the cashiers can have their opportunity to do their work.
Here's a good one. What does a professional charity auctioneer typically cost?
Well, we're not allowed to discuss that. We can't even discuss that amongst ourselves, the auctioneers, but I can tell you this. Some auctioneers will charge a flat fee. Some will charge a flat fee, or some will charge a straight commission, and some will charge a combination of an appearance fee and a commission. So I guess it's based on their individual track records and the results that they achieve. So,
great.
So I think that's a fair way to answer that.
Great. If you have any other questions, now is the time to ask them. Can you add wildcard items to a silent auction at the last minute if too many do the live auction?
What?
Like if I think what she's asking, if you add wildcard items to, is there ever too many wildcard items?
Oh, too many wildcard? Oh, that's great. That's a great question. I've never considered that, but yeah, I've had those situations where you do get. Oh, I guess you could. Absolutely, and that's a great contribution. That came from Pat Davenport.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was. I remember. Let's see.
Somebody else.
That was Pat Davenport. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, very, very good point.
Or
yeah, so if you get too many wildcard auction items.
Maybe that was Samantha Hammond. Sorry,
Samantha.
Yeah.
Anyway, whoever it was, thanks very much. Was a great point, and that just reinforces something I said earlier too. Is that all of the great ideas have not been thought of yet. Every day we're learning something new, and that's a good tip there.
Pat Davenport did have a great question though about do you recommend the silent auction being clustered in one area versus the perimeter of the room? Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. It doesn't matter depending on your space. It has more to do with your space. I would think if you have the space, my recommendation would be to kind of cluster it. You're going to have banks of tables set up in an area, like if you're in a big, huge ballroom or a big conference center. If you're a little tighter for space, run around the perimeter. Both work well.
This is an interesting question. If silent auction closes after the live auction, will people be reluctant to do the paddle raiser if they don't know how much they actually spent in the silent auction? Because they don't know if they won.
I've had that question answered before, and I can't qualify. It. Or I've had that question asked, and I can't qualify an answer for it because I don't know. I can just tell you that most of the time we see hugely successful paddle raises or funded needs or cash appeals, and I've never had a report or a complaint come back that anybody felt the silent auction suffered. So
interesting.
I kind of think they're standalone, and I don't think not a lot of people walk into the room at the beginning of the evening saying, you know what, I'm going to give $500 tonight to this cause. But if you can trigger them emotionally, as we said earlier too, you can get them lots of times to come to that point and open their wallets.
Good question from one gentleman, Kevin Spikerman. Do you recommend the auctioneer call the silent auction and talk about some of the items in the silent auction, maybe highlight some of the exciting items to drive people to the bid tables? Absolutely.
And your best fundraising auctioneers are probably going to be excellent masters of ceremony as well. and you should take advantage of that. And lots of times we see the celebrity MCs from the television station, and that's fine. But remember that if you're looking at bringing in a professional auctioneer, chances are they're going to be a good MC. And yes, you definitely not only want to have your MC, an auctioneer promoting the silent auction items, but also your raffle ticket sales, the super silent auction. Make sure they're giving lots of love and attention to the donors in the super silent auction, because if somebody has a personal jet and they've donated it and it happens to be in the super silent auction, I'll make sure that person gets every bit as much attention, that donor, for his super silent auction donation, as if it were in the live auction. So they need lots of love and attention.
Do you think it's acceptable, it's from Dana Whitburn, do you think it's acceptable to pay for auction items up front?
I don't like to see, well, do you know what? Here's my answer. Sometimes you have to, if you're stuck, but here's how to do it. We always recommend, and let's take one thing that we have a lot of success with is these wine trees. And again, it's in the book and checklist builder, how to build out of plywood a platform that holds about 100 bottles of wine. What we advise our clients to do is, from the date that they announce their event, is everybody they talk to, all of the volunteers, everybody that the volunteers are talking to, ask them for a $20 donation and say, we're building a wine tree and we're stocking it with 100 great bottles of wine. Collect all this cash. Mm-hmm. Now you've got this bunch of cash to go out and get your wine. You can go to a liquor store or a wine store. You can negotiate a deep discount lots of times on this wine if you can't get it purely donated. So yeah, it's sometimes you have to buy it, but make sure you're collecting cash, along the way.
Yeah, those wine trees, those can go for,
I've sold for $25,000 is the most I've ever got for one, but lots of times they bring $5,000 or $6,000.
How many bottles of wine on there?
100, and
varying price ranges.
Yeah, varying price. No cheap stuff.
Yep.
I usually say $20 a bottle is the minimum. $15-20 a bottle. Back in Canada we pay a lot more for wine than you do here because of the taxes, I think.
Right.
But $15-20 a bottle. You want good stuff on there. One cheap bottle of wine on your wine tree can bomb the whole thing, because the people coming up and looking at the wine tree, they see that $4.99 bottle of wine. They equate. Yeah, so they'll advise that we might get sued now. It's delicious, though.
Delicious,
it's
though,
delicious. Yeah. It's affordable and delicious. But the point being here that the buyers will subconsciously equate the value of all those other bottles to that lowest denominator. Yeah. So keep them good, and you can put some obscure wines on there that can be inexpensive, labels people don't recognize, because the wine is highly subjective, and so
yeah, definitely get your Rombauers on there, the whole bit. Yep.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? This is from Jacona Blackwell. What are your thoughts about a 50-50 cash raffle at Gallants?
I love that name, Jacona.
Jacona. Yeah.
On 50-50 cash raffles, that's great. They work good. It all works good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's a bad idea out there. Well, there are, but no, 50-50s, we see those all the time. Those are great. Another way to get people back to your tables, once you finished your live auction, silent auction, you're just closing that. Now you need to bring people back to their seats. One fun, effective way to do that is with what they call the heads and tails raffle. Mm-hmm. And you've seen that. You decide if you want to be a head, you put your hand on your head. If you want to be a tail, you put your hand on your rear end.
Yep.
Heads or tails. So then the MC flips a coin. All the heads, it's a head, so all the heads stay standing, tails sit down. So you can easily buy yourself maybe 10 minutes and stretch that thing out 10-15 minutes.
Cool. Love it.
And you don't even have to sell tickets for that. Just make that a free activity for the crowd.
What are some great auction items you could come up with based on a guaranteed willing celebrity guest attending the auction?
Okay, so you've got a guaranteed willing celebrity guest coming to the auction. Might be dinner. I've seen my partner Brenda, she once attended a dinner down here with Robin Williams.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was very cool. It was an auction item. We see that lots of times with celebrities will donate, or maybe a day, a little sailing trip, or a barbecue, whatever. See what the celebrity is willing to do. Or it could just be dinner at the event that night with the celebrity. Set up a VIP table and sell right at the event that night. A chance to come over and have dinner with the celebrity right at the event.
This is a good suggestion from Gene Warlick. We have a gift gathering party, and a $30 bottle of wine is the required for entry. We sell tickets at $150 each for a chance to win the wine. Very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. One of the event planners that we do a lot of work with, she likes to take that wine tree with 100 bottles of wine, and she sells 100 tickets at $100 a ticket. Sells out at every event that we're at with her, and so she gets a guaranteed $10,000 return on that wine tree. as opposed to auctioning it maybe for $5,000 or $6,000.
Cool.
And again, she gets all the wine donated or collects cash and goes out and buys the wine to stock the wine tree. Somebody asked there, Don Ford asked, what's a 50-50? Mm-hmm. That's where you're selling a raffle ticket for, maybe the raffle ticket sells for $1, and you draw the winning ticket out of a draw barrel, and the winner gets half of the money. They get 50% of all the money that was collected. So you sold 100 tickets at $1 a piece. You've got $100 in the kitty. You draw the winning ticket, the winner gets $50, and the other $50 goes to the organization.
Typically, they go for more than that, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
For $10, $50, yeah. Let's see. Do you recommend sit-down dinner, or can there be appetizers and drinks, then seated at a sponsored tables? You know, is that...
It's not so much what I recommend. What I prefer to work, I definitely myself prefer to work a seated dinner where people are seated. When the crowd is milling around, as I said earlier, at food stations or casino nights, things like that, it's definitely more of a challenge to get and to capture and hold people's attention. But that's not to say that it can't be done, and it can be done effectively. But that's a deep question. Take a little more time.
Yep, that's
so. Yeah, give us a call or call Winspire.
If you have entertainment, when is the best time to have them perform dancers from the dance school that's part of the organization? That's from Susan Krumrine.
That one I would do during dinner.
During dinner.
Definitely do that during dinner. Yeah.
All right, and if there's no other, we got a couple more here from Dana Bacardi. Do you have an alternative game for heads or tails? We've been doing that for many years now. Anything new? Any new ideas?
Yeah, I just can't think off the top of my head right now. I ate an energy bar a half an hour before this webinar. It still hasn't kicked in.
It hasn't kicked in yet?
It didn't kick in. It was supposed to kick in 30 minutes, and it didn't.
I love it.
And so, anyway, do you know what, Ian? This might be an idea. We've got dozens of questions coming in, and we had hundreds of questions, interestingly, after our first webinar. And a lot of questions continued to filter in after the first webinar, and this may happen here too, is what we should probably do, maybe on the Winspire website, is a Q&A.
Yep.
And you and I could take the time, and we'll write out all those questions, and you and I will go through the answers, make sure that we have succinct and clear answers for the people.
We'll definitely do that. Let's see if there's any up here. The wine bottles, wine tree, we have plans for that within Checklist Builder, so definitely check that out. Sign up for a free account.
Yeah, construction plans in there too, so you can just hand that to a carpenter, and he or she can build one for you.
Cool. And then Sue Consulman, love the webinars. Keep it up. You guys are a great team, so informative. High five.
High five, buddy. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Once again, folks, if you'd like to get a hold of me, it's Danny Hooper at DannyHooper.com. My manager's name is Faye, and she knows as much about the auction business as Ian or I do, and she'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Of course, Winspire.
Absolutely, and thank you so much.
Contact you guys.
Yeah, contact us. You can reach us anywhere on our website. Please go sign up for free for Checklist Builder. Give it a try. Let us know what you think. We want your feedback. We're always going to be improving it to help you guys. You know, in the end, we want to help you guys run the most successful, lucrative fundraising events you possibly can. So please, 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 we're here to serve you guys.
Well, it's so funny. We've been working on Checklist Builder literally for years. I started with the idea for this back in 2008, and we finally brought it to you folks here. You've had it now for well over a year,
yep,
and been working tirelessly on it. It got to a point we just have to launch this thing.
Yep, we just gotta launch it.
So it's out there, and it'll be a work in progress. It's already humming along like a fine sports car. You'll be amazed, I'm sure. And anything that we can improve, all you need to do is let us know, and we'll be right on it.
So give it a go. Checklist.winspireme.com. Your promo code there is Builder20. Sign up for free, and thanks so much for joining us. We'll look for another webinar we'll be having here maybe in August with some more Q&A and new topics. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a good one.
Happy fundraising. Happy fundraising.
Happy fundraising.
Happy fundraising.
Thanks, guys. Take care.